presented by Sanjay Mandava. He's the founder and CEO. Let me tell you a little bit about Sanjay. Sanjay is a two-time Y Combinator founder. He's having first launched Go Lorry and now, of course, Landeed that you all know about. Before entering the startup world, Sanjay worked as a proprietary trader and an investment analyst at various investment management firms, and currently he serves as a CEO and founder of Landeed, where he's dedicated to creating India and eventually the developing world's fastest and most comprehensive property title search engine. Wow. Please welcome Sanjay with a big round of applause for his next presentation. I hope Sanjay is not at lunch. Sanjay, are you here? Ah, Sanjay is there.
Should we just start? First off, it's a privilege to be in this room with some of the India's best operators, builders, and owners, and first of all, I'm also a capitalist, and I believe it's the best form of appreciating meritocracy in a well-regulated manner. And I say this with true humility, knowing how difficult real estate in India can be and how challenging it is. Given the type of work that we do, I probably more than anyone understand how difficult it is to operate in this market and do extremely well and have longevity. So, I think we'll get started right off the bat. I wanted to kind of talk to you about how this problem came about. I often have this joke that if you or someone that you know doesn't have a problem with property or land, they're probably not Indian. So I lived, studied, worked across 3 different continents. And I came back to India about a decade ago. And luckily enough, real estate was my classroom and developers were my teachers. So in terms of how important land is, I can give you the statistics, but I guess I'll start with a personal standpoint. Both my parents, doctors in US, growing up, that's where I grew up. In mid-1990s, they've acquired various land parcels across major cities in India with the hope of coming back to India and starting a chain of hospitals to improve healthcare. My mom tried to come back into India in early 2000s as a single woman, had a very difficult time dealing with the bureaucracy, the regulation, the government institutions, whereas she was just a doctor. To put this into context, she's a cardiologist or an electrophysiologist. At that time in India, there were precisely 3 electrophysiologists. But the difficulty she had in starting the hospital in India predominantly had to do with land and title protection. After dealing with those challenges, she decided she can't deal with this, went back to US, started a private practice, sold it to a corporate hospital group, and started another one. So she's a founder in her own right. And today, as the oldest son, a lot of the responsibility fell on me. And I can say that when I think about product, a lot of what I build is I think in my head how, if my mom came back to India, how simple it should be for her to be able to look up these property titles and be able to build something extremely fast. And this is very important because land being a uniform market is what truly helps you build a national real estate developer, which India still has some time to go. A lot of developers are regional, very large, very respectable, but at the same time, they're not in more than half of the states in India. And if we ever want to get there, we need a common, standardized land market with clean titling. That's the key ingredient. So you can see right there the size and difference in the market sizes for real estate. We're order of magnitude away. So, and if we want to take a more at the market cap, that's the market cap of the top 5 developers in India, China, and US. So that's where we are in terms of the pecking order. So when we build products today, we actually think a lot about how to improve the general market. I'm talking about not being where we are, but we hear a lot about these statistics that India by 2030, real estate is going to be a $1 trillion market. How do we get there? It's not easy. And it actually falls on the entire ecosystem to be able to get there. $200 billion and $1 trillion are just 6 years away. These are very lofty targets. Not impossible, but something very approachable if we're able to build a good financial infrastructure. And that all starts with titling again. So Australia is kind of the perfect place to talk about this because it's considered globally to have the best titling system in the world. So they have conclusive titling. They are state-backed titles. In India, essentially, we have something called presumptive titling, which essentially means that the government takes no responsibility on the cleanliness of the title. It's up on the buyer to do their due diligence on whether the seller is actually the owner of the property. And this essentially means today that 2/3 of all court cases in India deal with land or property, real estate related disputes. However, 84% of our household wealth, according to RBI, is in real estate. So not only is property and real estate an asset, but it also comes with a lot of liability and overhang. And when we actually think about how we kind of build an ecosystem, it's not only about the titling, it's also about the type of talent, it's also about the leadership, and it's also about the cross-learnings we want to take from the other markets. So I can tell you a little bit about what Landeed is building. Landeed is India's fastest and most comprehensive property title search engine, as you might have heard. Essentially, you'll be able to put in an address and pull up all the property-related documents in seconds. This helps brokers, agents, real estate developers, even governments use us, real estate bodies use us. And financial institutions and banks also use it for mortgage processing. When we think about building products, today we have scale, but we often have this saying. This is something we pick up from Y Combinator, who is one of our earliest investors. So to put it into context, they back companies like Airbnb. In India, they back Razorpay, Zepto, majority of the names that you hear of. And one of the things they say is do things that don't scale. So you want to start with the simplest unit of truth and build a company up from there. And so essentially when I built this product, like I mentioned before, I built it as though my mom living in US could come back here and use it. It's as simple as that. It so happens that 6 million other people in 2 years wanted it. Today we have over 6 million downloads. We pull 1,200 to 1,400 records an hour. We cover 23 states. But it all started with one simple idea, to make it very easy for people to check up if they actually own the property that they think they do. So land, as I talked about, needs to be uniformed, but at the same time, the developers also need to have a more tech-integrated vision to be able to procure that. So many of the times we defer that. We think it's a cost of doing business. But in many cases, real estate and real estate development also has to do with a high degree of risk mitigation. And legal, obviously, is one of the biggest ones. So it's something that as developers and promoters should probably pay a lot more attention than we currently do. So in terms of building great organizations, titling and products are one section. But it also starts with orientation. In India, we often say this within the company. They say we have many sectors: IT, pharma, oil and gas, BFSI, real estate, obviously. But I think broadly, India can be divided into two markets. You're either in the who you know market or what you know market. And real estate, for the past 2-3 decades, has primarily fell in the who you know market. Now, as competition grows and the country grows larger, you will have to, and we all have to transition to a more what you know market, meaning competencies, deep interdisciplinary skill sets, not only caring about experience, but also caring about bringing together multiple different units to be able to build a more complete developer. So that means instead of thinking about the company as a series of projects in particular localities, instead of having a project orientation, it's probably much more useful to have a product orientation. What is the theme that we want to project to our customers? What is the life cycle that we want to give them once they move into the building, from end to end, from when they purchase, from when they do their due diligence, up until living, and continuing to live in these properties? Because houses are not something majority of us buy every single day. It's a very infrequent purchase, and it has a lot of meaning. So that's one of the things I talk about, having a more continuous leadership that thinks across the entire customer journey. And then also, this applies to tech founders as well. I see a lot of us, I could relate a lot with second generation founders. We've seen some of them being extremely talented, but sometimes hesitant to take on the responsibility. And sometimes deferring that to, let's say, professional help or managers. So this is not uncommon. If you go back 20, 30 years ago, a lot of the large tech companies, the thesis was the founder started the company, but once it grows to a certain scale, you bring on professional help from outside, MBAs, so on to so to speak, to take the company forward. So Google founders, stepped back when Eric Schmidt came in, ran that company all the way till IPO. But today, the second generation, next generation developers, much like the founders, are more long-term oriented, are more comprehensive. They've leveled up. So it's important that they be given the responsibility to take the legacy forward of the brand, because majority of the real estate developers are still promoter and family-driven businesses. And also that's important for the longevity of the business. So sometimes taking short-term trade-offs for the betterment of the brand is a good trade-off. And that's not always possible to do if you take a quarterly approach or a purely financial approach towards incentivizing managers. For instance, in our own company, there's a reason I say that partners, I don't call them employees, because every single person inside Landeed has shares inside our company. And that is why we have very low attrition, which is very uncommon in tech industries. So this is not a criticism, but this is just thinking about it from a very broad perspective. MBAs can be good learnings, but they're also retrospective in nature. So when you think about it, a lot of the learnings that you learn in case studies have already been done. And in a truly accelerated pace, by the time they've graduated, many of these strategies will have already been priced in and outcompeted in the market. So you want to focus on what you can build for the future rather than what has worked in the past. And that's more what startups do. I mean, founders' job is essentially to pull the future from the future into the present as fast as possible. And this is not a criticism. I know some of our folks are from Tata, but if you actually look from the acquisition time, if you think about the headlines, if I asked anyone in this room, you'll probably have heard three things about Air India. One is they have the largest plane order ever in history. Second is they changed their logo. And third is they've changed the cabin attendants' uniforms. But if you actually truly think about it, how much has that changed in terms of customer experience? So marketing is nice for external stakeholders, but as people that actually sit in the plane and fly, how much experience has that changed? And this presentation was submitted before the recent case of somebody submitting a video about Air India. And a lot of that has to do with training and culture, right? One of those phrases that we use inside our own company is, missionaries over mercenaries. Essentially bring on people that truly believe in your culture and have a deep interest, not necessarily experience, but a deep interest in building and creating and taking things from nothing to something. So not a criticism, but just an observation of a brand that we can all associate with. And Air India has great potential. It's just a matter of whether the people are taken care of at the ground level and trained the way that they should be to take the brand. So as I said, second generation leaders have a more founder-like approach, are more tech-forward, tech-friendly. They probably should be empowered with a lot more than they already are. Some of them are sitting here. Some of them I work with very closely at players like Satva, Embassy, Arat. These are companies that have a very strong next generation leadership from the promoter family. And essentially, they are the ones that care a lot about the brand and the legacy, right? So that's what we were talking about just now. And when we think about talent and cross-learning, there's a saying that I've always said that there's almost far more dollars in the market than there are exceptional people. So when you find them, make sure you value them, know how to identify great talent. And we say that essentially that I don't build companies, I've been in India now running different companies. We build people that build companies. And that is the simplest form of truth. So if you're able to do that, we'll all be better off. And remember, only if you win, do we win. So thank you for your time. It was a pleasure speaking to you all.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. That was a very interesting presentation on Landeed, and I'm sure your innovative solutions are going to revolutionize at least the businesses who are looking at us from the other side today. Can we have you center stage? We would like to have Mr. Bhaskar, I always get this wrong, Nagendrappa and Mr. Abhishek Bhatewara to please come on stage. And thanks, Sanjay, for his lovely presentation. Please come center stage. We get really good pictures. There's good lighting in the center of the stage. Yeah. Standing behind me isn't going to help. I'm going to take up all the light.